Cool fact, a crocodile can't stick out its tongue. Also, you can get health insurance for a month or just under a year in some states. United Healthcare short-term insurance plans, underwritten by Golden Rule Insurance Company, offer flexible, budget-friendly coverage for you. Learn more at uh1.com.
The founder of Panasonic once said,
"We can lead more meaningful and constructive lives
through the pursuit of activities that will ensure
a better today than yesterday,
a better tomorrow than today."
Panasonic is committed to creating a greener,
more equitable future for everyone.
Explore Panasonic Green Impact
at na.panasonic.com/green impact.
Listen closely. That's not just paint rolling on a wall. It's artistry. A master painter carefully applying Benjamin Moore Regal Select eggshell with deftly executed strokes. The roller lightly cradled in his hands, applying just the right amount of paint. It's like hearing poetry in motion. Benjamin Moore, see the love.
Welcome to the New Chemist podcast. We're glad you're listening. Feel free to download this podcast on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. Here on the New Chemist, we discuss chemistry, which simply put is the science of change, as well as the other sciences, careers, community, research, and COVID-19. Welcome to the New Chemist podcast. It is so good to have you listening. On the New Chemist podcast, we are on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitch, and a variety of other platforms. On this podcast, we discuss chemistry, which simply put is the science of change, as well as the other sciences, careers, community, research, Nobel Prize lectures in chemistry, and the analysis of their speeches. We discuss thesis. Just in short, we are a STEAM and a career-focused podcast with science, technology, engineering, and the arts, which will be the main topic today, and mathematics. My guest today is Lynreshay Johnson, otherwise known to me as Lynn. It is so good to have Lynn on the podcast today. Thanks for joining me today. It's so good to hear from you. Just briefly, I'll inform my audience about you. Lynn Johnson is a performing arts administrator with 10 years experience in administration within artistic and non-profit settings. She is committed to ceaseless engagement with diversity, equity, inclusion, and access initiatives in cultivation. Moreover, she recently graduated from Columbia College in Chicago with a master's degree. She specifically obtained a Master's of Arts in Arts, Entertainment, and Media Management with an emphasis in performing arts. She has also served at the Chicago Community Trust. Me and Lynn go way back, so it's so good to have her on the podcast today. Yeah,
it's so good to be here. Thank you.
Yes, Lynn. Yes. So, just to introduce Lynn. Lynn, I want you to discuss what have been your long-standing interests in the field of communication and the arts. Would you mind sharing some of those?
Of course. So since a young child, I have been just so passionate about performance and speaking, and I've always been, student council and student body president, head girl, all of these leadership roles. But specifically for me, I always found joy being on the stage, doing things that were creative, and that led to me trying to figure out, okay, well, there weren't many opportunities for me to pursue the things that I would see like on television or online in the artistic field. So I decided, I'm also a go-getter and a self-starter. So I decided my summer before my senior year of high school to pursue some opportunities, and I went to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York by myself at 15, just walking around Manhattan, and learning from these amazing, amazing artists, learning acting, voice, dance, stage combat, improv. And we also had this thing called Industry Insights every Tuesday. And basically they would bring people from the industry in New York and around the country in America to talk to us about what it's like to be an agent, what it's like to be a stage manager, what it's like to be a producer. And that kind of just opened my eyes to the possibilities that I had outside of the Bahamas. And so I decided to study theater at Taylor University, and since then it's just been a dream. And for Bahamians, when I tell people I study theater, they'd be like, oh, I'm gonna see you on the big screen. And I'm like, that's film, first of all. But
That's
it's
funny.
just been a joy to educate our country and help people learn more about the industry and how fruitful it is. And then also moving more now into the arts management side of how do we build a theater, how do we run a theater, how can we get money to fund these theaters. That's more of where I'm moving towards now. So that's a little bit about my passion and my interest there.
Okay, this is good. This is good. So would you mind giving us some highlights of your Taylor experience in terms of your theater progress and milestones? What helped you develop as a theater major in the arts? What helped you develop your passion? What helped you develop your skill? And also what helped you get into Columbia College, as well as could you discuss some of those points?
Yeah, so I started at Taylor. I worked backstage as a stagehand, and that in itself was a new experience for me. Just seeing the quality of work. The first show I remember working on was Oklahoma, for those of you who are familiar with theater. And there's a house on set. You have the cornfields and everything. And so it was really interesting to go from, in the Bahamas, we don't really have a lot of experience with props and actual sets and that kind of stuff. But we had a full house. You could walk in. It had a kitchen and everything on stage that we had to roll out. We had a smokehouse in the back, and all kinds of stuff. So it was really interesting to help make that happen backstage and see how that works. And then as we progressed, I ended up being in the backstage more, just because that was more of what I had no experience in. So I wanted to dive a little deeper into that. I did act on stage as Miss Corey when we did Mary Poppins, and that was fun. But I have always been a leader, and I've always been really good at developing others. And so my junior year, I started focusing more on directing, and it just brought me so much joy to see the work that is put in from actors and see them develop into this completely different person, and just to see that whole progress from learning their lines and figuring out blocking and where to walk on stage, how to sit down, how to do all of these things. And I even got to extend that opportunity in the Bahamas, where I directed the youth development through the arts program that they have at the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture.
Oh, wow.
And was able to direct a original work. It's called Earnestly Thieves Never Win, and it's a spin-off of The Thief of Love, if you're familiar with that. But I was able to direct that. It was a brand new play, and it was so incredible to see, because not only direct them, but I also taught them everything that I learned in my education of what is theater, what are all of the different facets of theater, because that's something that no one ever taught me. And just to see the incredible work that they were able to do, it just brought me so much joy. But I knew that was temporary. And so as I talked to my professor at Taylor, Tracy, about some of my passions and what I wanted to do and take home, she steered me towards, you can look at arts management, and you're a really great leader. You're really great at managing things, managing projects, managing people. And so she steered me towards that. I did some research, applied a few places, and Columbia really stood out to me because it is an art school. And so every other program I was going to be studying theater management, but this was the only program that was arts management. So just as I predicted that I would have that cross departmental artistic community around me, my classmates, they all are focused on different facets of the arts. So like one of my friends, she's into museums. One of my other friend, he's a DJ and he also managed artists. One of my other friends, she is into like fine arts and, you know, photography. And one of my other friends, she's into music. The other's into dance. So there was like a wide variety that also like fed into me. And so I was able to have like a deeper understanding of not only theater, but also the arts in general. And that was also implemented into the classroom. So yeah, it's been a interesting journey, but I think everything so far has been so crucial and implemental into developing who I am today as an artist.
That's good. So since we do try to mesh together and we do try to combine science and the arts, I took a shot at this artistic approach, even though I have some public speaking background. So what I did was I adapted a poem, a fairy tale actually, from the Brothers Grimm, the 12 Dancing Princesses. And instead of doing the princesses, we're going to have 12 princes. So it's an adaptation of that fairy tale. So I'll read it to you and I want to hear your input on it and what is your view when it comes to theater serving as a conduit for helping people learn complicated ideas. So let me read it to you and let me hear what you have to say. So once upon a time, there was a professor who had 12 princes named Nemio, Structurio, and his brother Reactivio, Acidio, and his brother Basisio, Nucleofelicio, and his brother Electrofelicio, Equilibrio, Stereochemico, Sterico, and his brother Electronico and Regio Selectivio. Each prince was more complementary than their brother. They all stayed together in the mined town called Organico-Chemical. One evening during the mystical week known as Finale, they all came together to compete at the yearly games. Nemio was notoriously a political person who voted for the PLPs, aka Principal Locant Parent Chain Suffix. Structurio competed in the dance competition, showing his routines in their condensed and bond-line forms. Reactivio participated in the track competition, particularly in the race called the Kinetic 500. Acidio and Basisio competed in the meditation competition, led by Dr. Bronsted, who focuses on obtaining and letting go of your inner proton. Nucleofelicio and Electrofelicio helped organize the Kinetic 500, while they both competed in the gymnastic competition, with Nucleofelicio stretching the farthest and Electrofelicio serving as a catcher for the cheerleaders. Equilibrio participated in the annual Le Chatelier's fencing competition. Furthermore, Stereochemical participated in the art competition, focusing on 3D drawings and the arrangement of the objects in space. Sterico and Electronico, being fierce rivals, competed in the rowing competition, with Sterico winning at points and Electronico winning at points. The boat race is actually still ongoing as we speak. Regio Selectivio competed in the map reading competition since he was good at predicting the directions of battles and directions for hikes and journeys. These princes still compete today, and the story continues. So what that was basically a condensed description of all of those concepts, using names and using analogies for activities and competitions and different things you can compete in. So Lynn, what's your take on things like that, combining science and theater? What's your take on that? Do you think that is a viable practice? Do you think theater could serve as a conduit for helping people learn complicated ideas? What's your take?
Absolutely. I immediately was thinking of I don't have children yet, but in the future, reading this to my child and them kind of getting a taste or hearing those words, those scientific terms. And also, children are very visionary and imaginary. And, when they say you're in the arts, you also live in that childlike state. So as you was reading, I was kind of, imagining the competitions, imagining what those things would look like. And I think this is really important because, even through it being a story, I'm able to kind of understand what each item or each prince in the story is responsible for, what they're good at, you know, the things that they do. And so I think it's really important to have that creative side to also teach, because then I might not remember the name of, you know, one of the princes normally just reading a textbook, but thinking about it as a fairy tale, and you know, we remember the fairy tales that we read as children. So and just thinking about that and hearing that in my life, then when it's time to go to school and study chemistry, I'm like, oh, this is just like the Prince story. I already know how this works, you know?
Yeah.
So I think one of the most impressive things about the arts, especially for me, is that it's so cross-departmental in the fact that you can learn. It's a learning opportunity. And so you can learn so many different things through theater. And it just made me think even of a play I just recently watched, a musical called Into the Woods. And it's a fairy tale. You know, it has all of the different fairy tales, and they're kind of coming together into the woods. But it also has such deeper meaning about, you know, how to live as people and how to make right choices and stuff like that. And so it's always messages that can be read through the arts that can, you know, cause a deeper understanding and a deeper meaning for other principles of just life and science and how to be a human.
Yep, I agree. Completely agree. So my question to you, Lynn, is how do you maintain view of the bigger picture in your career and in your life in general? When you face challenges, how do you keep perspective? Because I'm sure being a theater major is not always easy. How do you keep perspective? Would you mind sharing some tips or strategies that you use?
Yeah, well, first of all, just having a relationship with God is like the number one thing for me, just because he keeps me grounded. He keeps me just focused on everything that I have to do. Once I focus on God, he kind of like shows me and helps me to get where I need to go. And so I really have the spiritual gift of faith. And so I really just believe that if I just do God's work, you know, he'll take care of me as well. And so I believe, and they say faith without works is dead. So I also do the work. I go to workshops, I go to conferences, I go to festivals.
For example, workshops like?
Yeah, so I recently went to the Southeastern Theater Conference, and that is a conference. It's short for the acronym is SETC, but it's the Southeastern region of theaters who come together, and they have competitions that high schools can participate in. They have research competitions that grad students can participate in. They have workshops for you to learn more things about your industry. So I know like one of the workshops I participated in was like Excel for theater. And so we learned how to like mail merge in Excel and just learn basic skills that it just took like an hour class to learn that skill. So that was really fun, and see some cool things you can do through Excel. But they also had a job fair. So I was able to network with some companies in different states. I was able to talk to people. I met a now mentor at that festival. She's the executive director, Tony. And she was so amazing. And I just was like, you are where I want to be. So can I have a conversation with you? Can I talk to you? And that led to her wanting to work with me on a few projects. So just networking also helps me to keep view of the bigger picture, and also writing down my plans, you know, and making it plain and writing down that vision. I try to keep it at the forefront of my mind, but you know, that's not always easy. Every opportunity I get when people talk to me, I tell them, you know, what is my future plans? Where do I want to be in the future? And so far, I've had so many words of encouragement, so many words of wisdom, even people who want to sow into my dreams and my vision and into my life, and help see that vision come to life. And so I think talking about it is always helpful. Praying about it is always helpful. And just keeping yourself in a community of people who are either where you want to be or are on that same mindset of, hey, this is possible because I've seen it before, you know?
Yeah, I agree. So, Len, how do you keep your priorities in check? How do you maintain your priorities? Is it a matter of saying no to certain things? Is it a matter of planning your day out and sticking to the vision as you mentioned earlier? How do you keep your priorities in check?
Yeah. For me, it's a day-to-day basis.
Okay.
And so, for example, I recently just finished an internship at the Chicago Community Trust, which is not a, performing arts institution. It is a philanthropic institution. But philanthropy is something that is also important to the arts. And because we're a nonprofit, we really rely on, donations and grants and that sort of thing. And so I wanted to work in that field a little bit just to get a taste of, what that could look like. And it would have been easy for me to say, oh, well, I'm more interested in this and I don't really want to do theater anymore, or, this is where the money's at or something like that. But I think what helped me to keep my priority is my passion. I was happy with the work that I was doing, but I didn't really feel, fulfilled. I didn't really feel happy every day. And I didn't feel like I was doing, what I was destined to do. I felt like I was being a little bit complacent with the work that I was doing. And so I think it's really just having that passion and knowing that that passion is elsewhere, that kind of, it just pulls you automatically. It's like, oh, I enjoy what I'm doing. I like what I'm doing. It's, beautiful, but it's also not what my actual soul and spirit wants to be doing right now. So I think that is the biggest thing that helps me to stay in my priority of my purpose.
Good. So my question to you then is, what advice do you have for those wanting to pursue the field you're currently working in? What advice do you have for someone who says they see Lynn, she's making strides, she's making progress. How can I start the journey to where she is going or where she's headed? What advice would you give to someone wanting to pursue theater?
Yeah, the first thing I would say is purpose is loud. It tells you exactly what it is you're supposed to be doing. And so if you feel within yourself that it's calling you, absolutely go and do it. Do not listen to the naysayers. Even my scholarship advisor, when it was time to pick schools and majors, was like, how are you going to feed yourself? And not knowing that I had already, went to New York, saw the industry, I knew how I was going to feel myself. I saw the fruitfulness of that. But if I listened to the people in my life who were like, who have a bird's eye view of what they can see on the ground where I was and not what I saw in my future and what God showed me, I could have not pursued it. So I would say, listen to that passion. Don't listen to the people around you, and find those circles of people who are like-minded and who have this similar interest. Because my best friend, she is in music and we both are very artistic. We talk every day and I can tell her my dreams and I can tell her my visions and I can tell her my plans because she has an idea of that industry. She has an idea of, the fruitfulness of that, and she's seen it for herself. But if I go to someone who doesn't really know and isn't really interested in that, they're going to have a different opinion. So I would say definitely surround yourself by people who are interested and research, find opportunities. There's so many opportunities out there that I wish I knew when I was a student and when I was trying to pursue theater. And so I would also say find a mentor who is where you want to be, or has that experience, because they're going to help guide you and point you to people and opportunities that you may have never known yourself. So that would be my advice.
Good. So I completely agree with you. Mentorship, community, passion, if you want to do well in the arts and know yourself, self-discovery. So Lynn, thanks so much for joining me today. It was so good to have you on as a guest. Thanks for listening. We're glad you were able to tune into this podcast. Once again, this is The New Chemist, where we discuss chemistry, which simply put is the science of change, as well as the other sciences, careers, community, research, and COVID-19. Thanks again for listening. Note, the views on this podcast represent those of my guests and I.